Welcome to Chapter 2, Influences and Connections. We hit a very big stage now. We're going to show the artists in history that would have witnessed this variant Charles V mythological sequence, including the ones that weren't variants, the Danae and the Leda, but the variant Venus, my version, and the School of Love variant. Because these artists that we're going to use, all their works are pre-1650, so pretty much the Mantua Venuses, which is the National Gallery version, and the Louvre version, were in a private collection until the 1630s and didn't come out of there. Even though some people may have seen them, we have a lot of artists in the Netherlands and the Flemish part of art history that all use these Correggio mythological works in their works, and it shows clearly that they witnessed these works in Rudolph's collection, in Prague, in Brussels, in the Granvelle collection, and maybe some even witnessed them in the Charles V collection, which would have been in Ghent. So all not too far away from each other. And who we start off with on this journey is our friend who we've mentioned quite a lot, is William van Heck. So William van Heck, he depicted this painting within this large Kunsthammer painting that he did. And I don't know if you can tell which is the most glowing, vibrant picture in that picture of pictures. Even this bust is looking at it, is this large Venus satyr Cupid. And there is significant connections between William van Heck and Prague. So here we have William van Heck from Amsterdam, and this is a painting that all through history has been questioned, what version is that? Because that isn't the Louvre version, and it's been, even on Wikipedia it mentions it's some copy that scholars don't know why or what, but it's obvious it's the variant that was commissioned for Charles V, that passed through the great collections, that was so famous and so greatly admired that William van Heck had to paint it in his dream collection. If we look at it closely, we can see you wouldn't have painted it from imagination. It's too detailed and too specific. It's truly a masterpiece within a masterpiece. So this is Veronese's influence and connections. He was of the time of when Charles V had the mythological sequence. There's lots of connections that we can write about that's in the essay for reference. But what we're going to do in this section on this video presentation is look at the visual connections. And here we can see in the Venus and Adonis by Veronese that this painting has great connection with the Io painting. But similarly, she's in the same position and the drapes as Io is sitting down. But bear in mind, these aren't copies, these are influences. But it isn't just Io that is used here as an influence, as the Adonis is in a similar, like, can we call it an exact match of Zeus coming through the cloud. Like the angle is more frontal, very similar to the Orleans engraving more than the Vienna. Even though it's an influence, it could be any which way. But just for a little case we're beginning to build, it looks more like the position of the cloud in the Orleans version, which is a variant version of Io. Now, who do we know is the partner to Io? Ganymede, of course. The Cupid is the Ganymede. The dog representing the eagle of Jupiter, with Cupid's wings actually are the eagle's wings, and the long-nosed dog is the eagle. The dog on the left looking up representing the Labrador in Ganymede, and the white dog is a continuation of the Io painting representing the deer. Everything in this picture allocates consistently with the Io and the Ganymede. Here we have Veronese's Leda, which to me is after Correggio's Leda and the Swan. Because of the greater influences and connections we have later on, it makes sense that this is an influence from Correggio. But this is not a strong one to go with at all, that what we're going to end up with. Because we're touching Veronese, I have to mention this. This is a Cupid that is a fragment that is of almost the same size as my Cupid, but this is from a large composition which is here in the Orleans collection. But so happens this large composition of a Venus has been destroyed and all that's left is the Cupid. but this is believed to have been the version that came out of the Orleans collection and is a fragment. And it goes with populating this list of paintings that were attacked in the Orleans collection. But we'll leave that one there and we'll carry on. This painting by Veronese of a Venus and Cupid with a sneaky satire hiding in the background is certainly after the School of Love, but you can see at the moment she's not naked and she's quite covered up. And if you look at the School of Love version, her bits aren't covered up. If we side by side it, we can even see that the satire has got a very similar facial position as the Mercury. Cupid is almost identical and the Venus hand positions are the same as the School of Love. But all of what we see here is this painting is certainly created and influenced by seeing the School of Love, but which version? Well, the variant version that Charles V had. I know she's in full clothing, but she's still covered up her bits. Here we have another Veronese. This one, I believe, is after the School of Love and the Venus Satire Cupid, because we can see that Venus is depicted here. We can see that a similar Mercury is depicted here. And a similar Cupid is depicted here as the School of Love. So where do we see the Venus Satire Cupid in this painting? Well, there's our satire. Both eyes on show, the satire's there. We have another little Cupid here, which represents our Cupid. We have the fork tree in the background in the bushes, and because Venus is already in the picture being used, I'm suggesting that the horse is a representation of the lion's rug. Here we have a Mercury Venus Cupid, which is certainly after Correggio's Mercury Venus Cupid, School of Love. But again, she's covered up with a sheet, just like our variant. Here we can see the Mercury in a similar position. We can see Venus in a similar position. We can see the Cupid. This Veronese by the window, the Dream of St Helena, is very much after the Danae. Two little Cupids. Legs open, sheet over the legs by a window. Now we go to Titian. Some very good ones with Titian. So as we proceed, we get even stronger influences and connections. Here's an easy one. This is the Danae by Titian. It's certainly after Correggio's Danae. You can see the little Psyche by Correggio is depicted here as the maid. We've rotated it round so that she matches the position of the Psyche, and the Titian's Danae matches the Correggio Danae. This is a really good one. It's a Jupiter and Antiope by Titian. Why this is good? Because it shows you the leader painting and the Venus Satire Cupid both as influences with Titian's work. Titian was a painter for Charles V. He was part of the Charles V court and very much had awareness of Charles V's collection. And do you want to know something famous about Titian? He didn't do himself any favours, but he was speaking the truth. He wished that if he wasn't Titian, he was Correggio. Basically, he admired Correggio so much, and Titian was not known as, a timid guy. He had a bit of an ego. And you don't have to take Titian's word for it. Titian's work is just as great as wonderful as it is nothing compared to Correggio's work. That's not an opinion, just side by side the works. Correggio's is another world, but it's already known that the leader went through the Charles V collection, and the Louvre version is in Mantua, in Federico's, but Titian has put both compositions' influence in this work. He's put both of them in. So shows that he's seen them both, and most likely together. It makes perfect sense. So he's seen the Venus Satire Cupid variant in Charles V's collection along with the leader. And we can see this satire and this Venus representing the Venus and satire. We see a Cupid up in the tree, which if you look at its leg positions, if you see the left leg is angled and going back, and the right leg is more straight and going forward. But then if you look at the trees, you've got that large tree on the left in Titian's, and then branched off is a forked tree. Well, it's very much like the Correggio variant in William van Heck, showing the forked tree. So I see that Titian is influenced by Correggio's Venus Satire Cupid variant. So here with these three figures on the left side of the painting, we have this main figure here is leader, and below these two other figures represent each of the other leaders in the sequence. So on the left side of the picture, we can see here this man with his arms out looking sideways. This fellow, I believe, represents the main leader, as in the Correggio work. This one on the bottom right side looking on is the leader as she's being courted, and this satire looking up is depicting the leader as she says goodbye to the swan. So these three figures are the three leaders. He's just like the cherub blowing the trumpet in the leader painting. This whole composition and painting is clearly influenced by seeing the mythological works in a place, which would have been in Charles V's collection. Annibale Carracci. Some years later, as he was 1560 to 1610, would have been very much aware of Correggio, but he's got this work which is titled Venus with a Satire and Two Cupids. Well, the satire could likely be after Correggio's satire, but the lady is certainly after Correggio's Io. So here we have the key markers after our work, which is the satire. The chalice, which represents the forked tree. We have the Cupid, we have the lion, and the Venus, painted in the fashion of Io. What a wonderful homage to these incredible works. We're not looking at copies, we're looking at paintings that are supposed to be unique, but they're influenced by Correggio. These influences, that's why you can say, well, they clearly are influenced by Correggio's works. This is great. The Venus and Adonis and Cupid is certainly after the school of love, but if you look, her modesty is covered up. Same as the Brueghel version, same as the Orleans engravings. And we have to use the National Gallery to get some colours, but if you look at the colours of Cupid's wings, the blue and yellow, you can see the blue and yellow depicted in the picture, in the Adonis. This one by Annibale shows the satire, both eyes on show. The Venus is certainly after Correggio's Venus. He's done something different there with Cupid, but one arm up holding the bow. Cupid in our painting's got one up right near the bow. A close-up of the side-by-sides of the satires and the Venus head. Clearly Annibale is influenced by Correggio's Venus Satire Cupid. This is a leader and a swan drawing by Annibale. Here we've got the Prado version just because that shows the original face. You can see the hand position and the angled face and the neck of the swan. Now we land on Van Dyck, influences and connections. We can see in this painting of Mirtillo crowning Amaryllis from the 1640s by Van Dyck, it's got it all going on. So here we can see the Io, we can see Ganymede, we can see the Danae, we can see the three leaders, the satire, we can see Venus, the forked tree, the quiver, the lion, Danae's Cupids, and our Cupid. We can match so much up in this picture. Here's a painting after Van Dyck, but it's certainly after Correggio, with the satire with both eyes shown, certainly after our variant satire. The Venus here, certainly after Correggio's Venus, but it's funny, I can see the hair tied up, but the legs in a forked position. This Van Dyck work, again, brilliant, showing the satire upon the Venus. This is certainly after our variant Venus Satire Cupid. The satire with both eyes on show, Venus with her protruding nose, her arm outstretched, her feet laid out. Another Van Dyck of a sleeping Venus with a forked tree The fault tree is not in the Louvre version. It is in our variant version. Cupid is shown a lot bigger here. You can see side by sides of the Venuses and the fault tree. If you're not with me yet, you'll be with me now. This painting by Van Dyck, Diana and a nymph surprised by a satire, 100% after Correggio's Venus Satire Cupid, but after my variant Venus Satire Cupid, because that was the famous version. And if you look here at the side by sides of the satire, both eyes on show, if you look, we have the fork tree, we have Venus with her arm overstretched, her feet positions almost identical. If you look at the dog, that is after the lion's head. There is a quiver. It's a different quiver, I will say that, but they're not supposed to be identical. The nymph, and we rotate the nymph's face, it's a dead match. It matches exactly with the Cupid. It's not plagiarism, it's what you did. You're paying homage to these famous artists and you're accrediting them and you're reimagining their works. It's the recipe. When you do that and you pay homage to this great artworks and you reimagine it, your works seem to take off and become so famous because the magic continues. The greatness of the works is passed down. The influence continues. It's like genetics being passed down through human history. It's what this secret circle of artists did, because you wait and see what I'm going to show you. It's going to blow your head off. So next, another Flemish Dutch artist. We're going to Jan Brueghel. Brueghel's influences connections with Correggio. Now we can see within his works that he's witnessed the mythological Charles V versions and variants. Presumably he see them all in Prague. It is also recorded he spent time at the Granville Palace where Correggio's Venus works were. Here we have Brueghel's depictions of the senses. They're all different versions, but each have influence from Correggio's compositions. Here you can see both Io depicted, the position of the woman, and it's got the deer, the hand reaching up just like Ganymede, and then if you look up where's the bird, there's a parrot. In this other one by Brueghel, we have clearly the position after the Danae. We used the Borghese Danae here. Here we have after the Venus Satire Cupid. You can see satire, both eyes on show, arms outstretched. We have the chalice opposite the satire, which again is the fork tree opposite our satire. There's a dog in the background influenced by the lion's head. In the far background we can see our Cupid, which is next to the lion, and we see the quiver and arrows next to him. The lady is influenced by Venus. Here we have one after the School of Love, and it's quite amazing because the lady is after Mercury, Cupid is after Cupid, but in the far background we've got a lady in the same position as Venus in a statue. So next we have the sense of touch. I really like this one. What this work shows is, I believe, is after the School of Love, and again he's doing the Venus as Mercury, same positions with little Cupid. So if Venus is after Mercury, where is Venus? And if you look just next to Venus in the same picture, we've got this armour and her bits are covered up by the armour. Her arm position on the right is just like the arm position of the Venus. I'm confident to say that this is after Correggio's School of Love, and that is the Venus, that's the Mercury, and that's Cupid. This is a very big Where's Wally. But you think, right, it's a large composition, part of Brueghel's sequence. Maybe it's consistent to have the mythological works in here. And then you look at a closer detail, we can see many side-by-sides of these characters all the way through. A bit more of Brueghel here. This composition has a bit of Danae, Io. There's the side-by-side of the Danae on the left, and this lady over here is in a similar position as Io. They're just subtle nods and admiration to Correggio, but we have enough there to warrant that the truth is there. So next we have the Diana and Sleeping Nymphs. It's all going on here. We've got a bit of Io, we've got a bit of Venus Satyr Cupid going on, and a very large fork tree. And if you look at that fork tree, this is again a nod to the variant fork tree in our Venus Satyr Cupid. One of the best cases, I believe, for the School of Love variant is this work by Rubens and Brueghel. And here we see Venus has a blanket covering her genitalia, just like the variant version. She's not exposed there like the School of Love in London. We can see that Cupid is very much the same Cupid. A similar hand position there going on with the Mercury. Alternative, but similar. And I really like that version as a proof of the School of Love variant. A beautiful work by Brueghel, The Garden of Eden, which was involved, again, a collaboration with Rubens. And we can see that Adam is an identical position as Cupid. Eve looks like she represents the Venus. Where's the quiver of Cupid? Well, that's represented in the large peacock fantail. And where is the lion's rug head? It's the dog. And the large horse must be filling the void for the satire. Now, Bartholomew Spranger, Influences and Connections. This guy was the superintendent of the Rudolph II collection. He'd done many works of the mythological area, all after Correggio, and he also organised and instigated the purchase of the mythological Correggios from the Granville collection. Worked in Prague, so yeah, Spranger certainly had great, it's recorded that he had great influence by Correggio because he accessed them and he obtained them for Rudolph. And here you can see this Venus and Adonis is after the Venus and Satyr. Her arm outstretched. We've got the dog representing the lion, we've got the Cupid, and the Adonis is representing the Satyr. So a famous name that we all know too well is Rubens. So Rubens' influence and connections. Peter Paul Rubens, 1577 to 1640, in that big block of time where all these depictions consistently were done, when the mythological works would have been in Prague. He was one of the most famous Flemish artists. This is a wonderful version to use. It's the Satyr pressing grapes with a tiger and two children, 1618 to 1620. So that definitely our version would have been in Prague then. But if you look, the side-by-sides of the Satyr, arm stretched. Instead of a lion, we've got a tiger. Cupid with his little bum sticking out, same as our little Cupid. And we've got the forked tree. All the flags to identify our variant version. A drawing that was originally attributed to Van Dyck, Venus lamenting over the dead Adonis, certainly after Venus Satyr Cupid. This work is after Rubens or by Rubens, but still shows satire, both eyes on show, Venus very much the same, and a forked tree. Incredible, this one. after the school of love. The blanket covering up her genitalia, another marker, her modesty covered up, showing that is the variant version that was in the Prague collection that went on to the Orleans. Mercury and Venus and Cupid, to me, it's quite a mirror image really. Rubens has certainly seen the school of love. Here is some different compositions by Rubens of a little boy, all after the school of love Cupid. Certainly after the school of love's Cupid that he witnessed. This Diana and Callisto, look, this lady after Io, and there's even the deer hanging out the tree. Where's the pot? We've got this large pot next to her, which is a vase with a big handle, just like we have the handle on the pot. Rubens has done the Danae painting. The maid is the Psyche here after Correggio. Here's the Danae. We used the Borghese Danae here. So Hans van Ocken does a Bacchus, Ceres and Amor. Here you can see the side by side. Bacchus is certainly after satire. Ceres is certainly after Cupid. And the Cupid they've put in is certainly after Venus, with the breast on show. And if you look at the hand, I've actually put the hand that I revealed on my Cupid, which is Venus's hand, which relates to me saying that this Cupid is after the Venus. And we have a forked tree in the background. This Pallas Athena, Venus and Juno look like just three ladies. But if you look, one is after Mercury, one is after Cupid, and one is after Venus. So that picture is after the school of love. This one that Van Ocken also did, Pan and Selene, which sold at Christie's, has been described after Correggio, which I don't need to describe it is after Correggio, it's already been done. So here you go, some side by sides. Now I will show you one other important artist to history, a Spanish artist that we all know and a favourite amongst many. Diego Velasquez. Many of Velasquez's greatest paintings, again, like all my other reveals, are hiding a monumental secret. They are incorporating Correggio's mythological paintings throughout, within group portraits and individual works. Let's start with Les Meninas, the biggest, most important Velasquez work. All the characters in this painting are from the mythological works. This painting incorporates both the leader and the swan and the Venus satire Cupid. These centre figures are Venus, satire, Cupid, the quiver, the lion and the forked tree. Here is Cupid, side profiled. Here we have Venus in the centre, her hand just as Venus is. Yes, she's looking at us, but she is the star of the show. Next to her, we have that side-angled, profiled face with both eyes and is of the satire. The quiver is the palette. The dog is the lion. Above Cupid, in the Velasquez painting, the forked tree is incorporated with the paintbrush and the Knight's Order on Velasquez's chest. Then we move on to the leader and the swan. All these characters in Velasquez's work represent the characters in the leader and the swan. In the mirror, the two little cherubs. In the back door, looking straight at us, is the little Psyche with his arms inclined, slightly outstretched, standing up looking at us. The man in the painting, who represents Velasquez himself, is also representing leader. He's painted himself as leader. We can know this through a few factors. The big, broad forehead, his head slightly inclined, which was more inclined when you research the X-ray. Now where is the swan? Well, as the brush leads down the picture, slaloms down again with one of the brushes below the palette, then it hits the dress of Cupid and you see the wings of the swan. So this is leader and the swan. Here is the lady, the maid next to the leader. Here is the other maid. Then this dwarf is leader with a broad face and all the locks of brown hair. And in the correct position, the furthest bottom right, as in the leader painting, with the hands raised up and outstretched in this funny manner, we have the leader when she's being courted. He chose his two favourite Correggio works, which it was the known done thing to be done by these old masters, and I believe I have discovered and worked out the truth behind Les Meninas. So next, the Water Cellar of Seville is of the School of Love. You have the inclined face of Mercury. We have the side profile of Cupid and the front facing of Venus. The chalice shown as great importance. The lunch painting by Velasquez is of the Venus satire Cupid. He done two versions of this. Maybe it shows that there was the two versions of the Venus satire Cupid. We can see in this alternative variant version that Velasquez did, the Cupid's got his thumbs up. So maybe that's where the sword is in the background that has a representation of the full tree in the Venus satire Cupid. So it may be showing that is acknowledging this work as the greater work. We can see even that there's pomegranates in front of him, indicating that he is love, as in Cupid. It's easy to see in the original version of the lunch scene because he's side profile. But in case we get confused with him looking at us, the pomegranates are there just to clearly indicate who he is. Here we have Venus in the centre. The satire, arm stretched, side profiled. Bacchus by Velasquez is of the Venus satire Cupid and the leader. Here we can see these three figures representing the satire, who is holding a chalice, which opposite our satire is the fault tree. This male figure in the middle represents the Venus, and this figure is Cupid. Now the rest of the picture is the leader and the swan. This guy in the front looking straight at us is leader. Below our leader she has a swan. Well, below this guy, just near the cup, is a little bird. To the right of our leader we have this maid who represents this man side looking. We have the other maid looking down, her arm outstretched holding the blanket. Well, this man here is outstretched with his arm open and the figure below looking up, just as the other leader. And this chap on the bottom of the picture on the left is mirrored this leader to the other side of the picture. But below him is the little bird. So we can see a bird in front of each leader. Well, the one of the leader looking up, the hand is empty because the bird has flown away, as the swan of leader has done his business and flown away. This great picture of three musicians and a monkey is the three leaders, and the little Psyche figure in the leader and the swan that is looking straight at you is the monkey. And this face, it's always been compared with Caravaggio's Bacchus. That's because Caravaggio's Bacchus and Velasquez musician are all derived from the same figure, leader and the swan. So these three leaders, you have the leader that is being courted by the swan on the right. You have the leader at the end of the sequence, after the swan flies away, is looking up, which is this centre figure. And on the left, this boy is the main centre leader herself, or himself, as it were. Now, each one of these guitars represents the swan, and each one of these figures represents the leader. You can see that our main leader with the swan has the gold above, and this gold is in the arm of this boy. We can see the left of leader, we have this Psyche cherub fella looking straight at us, just like the monkey is. And he has that inclined arm just the same. This painting by Velasquez has the simple name of an old woman cooking eggs. And what we have here is the leader on the right. She is side profile, but she has her large forehead and she has an aged look of leader, but she looks like leader. On the left we have this chap which has that face of the maid next to leader, who in the leader painting has that gold sheet below her, and here he has this gold looking, is it a pumpkin maybe? But the other identifiable piece of this puzzle in this picture is the 3 eggs. So the 3 eggs are the 3 swans. So we have the 3 eggs representing the 3 swans, we have leader, and we have the maid next to leader. So we have the 3 eggs representing the 3 swans of leader. But in the scene, you can see that the shawl over leader's head is representative of her swan. We have the little white blanket above, which is the swan flying away, and below the courting leader, maybe shown here as the pestle and mortar. The 3 depictions of the swan could be these 3 image areas. This is a great one of leader when she's being courted by the swan. You can see this handkerchief on the table with its little bit inclined, representing the swan's head. This is the swan, this is leader. And there's so many layers because this character is leader and the swan, but Velasquez is of the understanding who Correggio was representing in his leader and the swan. And they go back to the Last Supper, and you can see in this picture on the left, this is a translation of who this character is within that. But that is a greater, bigger, deeper story. This painting by Velasquez of these 2 gentlemen is a reinterpretation of Io. We even have the blanket is the same as the white blanket sheet below Io. We have the pot. We have the man looking down, which is Jupiter in the cloud, and the other man with, well, there's not much to say other than his hand is outstretched, just like Io is. We leave this work and we go and proceed with the real big version by Velasquez, which is a mirror version of the Night Watch, a militant group army scene, and all the spears have been said to be something to do with the Night Watch spears. What the real connection is between the Night Watch and this painting is the Night Watch is a reinterpretation of all Correggio's mythological paintings, and this painting by Velasquez is again another reinterpretation of all of Correggio's mythological works. Within this work we have the School of Love, the Venus Satyr Cupid, the Ganymede, the Io, the Danae and the leader. The centre of the picture shows the Danae. I feel that Velasquez is showing you that this was his favourite picture of them all. So in the very centre we have the Danae and the Psyche. And if you look at the gentleman that represents the Danae, his whole outfit is like a load of gold little coins, just as Danae was being rained down on these gold coins and shower. And Danae would have had the cloud above her, which is gold. So if you look across, and what is next to Danae? Is there a gold cloud? Well, there's a flag with a big golden indicator on it. So the flag represents the golden shower. This gentleman is Danae, and in front of him, with his arms outstretched, is the little Psyche. Now this guy represents the little Psyche. The chap on the right here represents one of the Cupids, and this other guy here represents the other Cupid. There'll be other patterns and details within the Danae, but there's everything you need to see here to represent the Danae in an obscure, cryptic way. If we look at this image I've put together of overall of leader, you can see that this gentleman looking straight at us with the big broad forehead is leader. You can see that he has a bit of gold just in front of him, just like leader does in the leader painting. You can see now as we flick through side by sides each and every character in this painting that match the leader and the swan painting. It all looks so easy and simple, but nobody has ever discovered it. We go through and we see where Io is. Here is Io, here is the Jupiter looking down as a cloud. He even looks a bit blurry. You've got Ganymede, you've got this man representing the eagle. Now where is my beautiful Venus, Cupid, Satire? Well, here we go. There is Venus here with her hand pointing up. To the left of her, slightly obscured, tucked in here, is the Satire. To the right, we have Cupid. In the middle, the horse represents the lion, but within the horse's braces, there it is, the famous fork. That is the fork tree represented. Just next to this area of the painting, we have the School of Love painting. We've got this man, slightly obscured, looking straight at us. That is Venus. We have his back to us, but looking in the same position. After Mercury, here is Cupid on the side profile. And to indicate that even more conclusively this is these three, we see Cupid's little feathers down here, gold, yellow, white and blue. So we've completed this painting by Velasquez with all the mythological works. I believe I have discovered and worked out the truth behind Diego Velasquez, and I hope this is helpful to everybody. I'll see you next time for the next big discovery.